Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Policy Session on May 15th, 2024. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner Savas is out today at a regional transportation conference. The other commissioners are in attendance. We're going to flip the order of policy sessions, and we will start with Psilocybin service centers and manufacturing facilities. Office of County Counsel will present. Caleb Hugel, Assistant County Counsel, is the presenter. Caleb, go ahead.
Gary, good morning, commissioners. The policy session worksheet for this isn't very long. We're making some very general decisions today, need some direction from the board. But I'll go through some history first. In 2020, Oregon voters passed Measure 109, the one right before Measure 110, which legalizes psilocybin in Oregon and requires the Oregon Health Authority to license and regulate psilocybin product manufacturers where the products are made and psilocybin service centers where the products are administered to people. Almost 250,000 people voted on Measure 109 in Clackamas County, and about 52% of them were in favor of it. Measure 109 itself includes a number of licensing requirements and regulations, and OHA subsequently adopted administrative rules filling in some of the details. Two portions of Measure 109 are particularly relevant today. One allows local governments to adopt ordinances allowing or prohibiting manufacturers and service centers within their jurisdictions subject to approval by the voters within that jurisdiction. The other allows local governments to adopt reasonable time, place, and manner, or TPM regulations for manufacturers and service centers and actually testing laboratories on top of what Measure 109 and OHA's rules require. OHA began issuing licenses in January 2023. In 2022, this board adopted an ordinance temporarily prohibiting manufacturers and service centers. That ordinance was referred to the voters. Almost 200,000 people voted on it, and about 54% of the voters were in favor of it. However, that prohibition expires at the end of this year. That's why we're here. The purpose of this policy session is to gauge whether the board would like to, one, explore adopting another prohibition on manufacturers and service centers, whether it's temporary or permanent. Two, do nothing, in which case the requirements of Measure 109 and OHA's rules will govern manufacturers and service centers within the county. Or three, explore adopting reasonable time, place, and manner regulations on top of the state requirements. If you want to explore adopting another prohibition, you would need to adopt an ordinance before August 16th so that we can get it to the elections official so that it can be included on the November ballot. You would have public hearings before adopting the ordinance, and we could invite subject matter experts at that time to answer your questions about psilocybin in general, about what Measure 109 and OHA's rules require, and whether other jurisdictions that allow these uses have had any issues that you might want to consider. If you don't want to explore adopting another prohibition, but you do want to know more about what Measure 109 and OHA's rules require, then we can have a subject matter expert come answer questions and give a presentation at issues or another policy session in the future. If you want to explore adopting TPM regulations, staff would take a look at what other jurisdictions have done. I believe Deschutes County has adopted those. They're not long. And we could come back to you with some potential regulations for you to consider at a policy session. And then depending on your direction, we would begin the code amendment process. For something like that, it would probably entail amending the business regulations portion of the code, Chapter 8 something, as well as the zoning and development ordinance, which follows a different procedure. It would be similar to the short-term rental amendments that you did, where there were sort of two tracks, zoning and business regulations. If you end up adopting another prohibition, we might subsequently come back to you to discuss preparing local TPM regulations so that they're ready in the event that the prohibition is rejected by the voters, so that we have something queued up if November rolls around. They don't want the prohibition, but we still want local regulations on top of what the state requires. Another purpose of this meeting, regardless of which route you want to take, is to find out what questions you have so that we can have people here, or we can study up ourselves, to answer them at the next step, whatever that looks like. So again, to recap, we're looking for your direction on whether you want to adopt another prohibition or do nothing, or explore adopting local regulations on top of what the state requires. And we want to know what questions you think will help you in making that ultimate decision. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to come out first on this. In your options, you have an ordinance that says permanently banned, and you say prohibition. Are those two words interchangeable?
I intended for them to be interchangeable.
Okay, but the document says permanently banned. You're saying a prohibition subject to blah, 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 is from what I understand.
Subject to approval by the voters.
And anything else? Or it's just an outright ban?
It would be an outright ban.
My position on this, since I've been chair of this commission, and all of the really harrowing social issues we've had to deal with as being the state's public health authority, especially in light of Measure 110, I don't know how we can do anything but permanently ban psychedelic mushrooms, because we are fighting drug abuse and addiction on all levels. I am not convinced from the hearing we had, a year ago? Was that hearing a year ago? Can somebody enlighten me when that was? We had medical professionals come in here and say what a wonderful antidote this is for depression and anxiety. But the problem is, it's a psychedelic. And that while they're administered in a place, the effects of the psychedelic properties are still enforced when you get in your car and drive it down the street. And we have enough addiction, we have enough drivers addicted, we have enough of the behaviors out there that I am wanting, and it's up to the board. You know, I have not discussed this with any of the board members, they know that. It's just my position. How can we be consistent in fighting fentanyl and all these other illegal drugs that have now been recriminalized and continue our population to use psychedelic mushrooms? I also know from talking to naturopath doctors, who some of them like them. They got them sitting on their shelf and in jars. Guess where you buy them? You buy them online. We have not banned online purchase of psychedelic mushrooms. What we're here to do is possibly ban retail sales, am I correct, in Clackamas County, and the manufacture on farms. Is that correct?
Manufacture on farms, I don't know why folks wouldn't be able to manufacture within the urban portions of the county, but the manufacturing facilities and service centers where they're administered to people.
Okay.
I don't know that you would.
That's kind of where I'm laying on this, because I believe the tide of public sentiment has very much changed on this. You can still get this product online. Heck, you can go, I can name six naturopath physicians between here and Vancouver where you can walk in their office and buy them. So I don't think we need to approve this. It's my opinion. I'm sure the commissioners have their opinions on this. And nor do I see a single telephone call, email in my office or in the county emails, Tony. I do not see a thing on social media except for people are sick and tired of people being addicted, being homeless, and our taxpayers are paying for that behavior. That's all I'm seeing. And I have a very, very widespread on social. Gee, it's campaign season. So I think I know what people are telling me. Commissioner West, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. How is it enforced if it passes? What if, let's say, we have an ordinance or we have a prohibition? What's the enforcement mechanism from the county?
If the board goes ahead and adopts a prohibition, an ordinance prohibiting these facilities, it would be referred to the voters. If
And
they
they say
approve it,
prohibit.
they say prohibit it, then OHA would no longer issue licenses for these facilities. Manufacturers and service centers need to be licensed by OHA.
Okay.
And OHA, once we told them we're adopting this ordinance, they wouldn't issue the licenses between when the ordinance is adopted and when the voters vote on it, and then if the voters approve it, they wouldn't issue licenses thereafter.
So it would stay the status quo in Clackamas?
Correct.
Okay. I can remember when we were in the political season of legalizing marijuana beyond just medical marijuana. It was often propagandized as this medical cure-all. And granted, these are two different substances. And the word evidence-based was thrown around as if it was the gospel truth. We now see how there is real consequences for the misuse of marijuana, especially for underage people, the increase in schizophrenia, cognitive disorders, I won't get into what a marijuana overdose looks like because it's kind of gross, but as a nurse, I've seen it. And it's not fun or comfortable, and that person's admitted, and then we realize, oh, that was a marijuana overdose. It's very hard to detect. We have a really permissive drug culture. We've been very pro-drug in Oregon, so pro-drug that it's almost destroyed our entire state. Now, fentanyl and mushrooms and marijuana, they're not the same, I get it. So I am very leery without actually diving into the real objective data about the medical use for psilocybin and for these substances to open up more floodgates of access to mind-altering psychotropics. I have a hard time with that right now with where we are. Now, if it's followed by a physician, if it's followed by a naturopath, if there is provider-directed care, if you can go to your naturopath and get it, that's probably a way to use some type of controlled substance like this. But opening up retail shops, like we have marijuana shops on every street corner, like there's Starbucks now, and as if that's really helping the community, I don't know if it really has, and if that's what we want in Clackamas. I'm curious, because didn't the language in Measure 110 functionally legalize psilocybin, and then, isn't it already kind of legalized with small amounts anyways? Where does Measure 110 intersect with 109 and then House Bill 4002?
That's an excellent question that I would need to do some research and follow back up with you on.
Okay.
One clarification I did want to make is that if we don't, if the board does not adopt an ordinance prohibiting and that it's not adopted by the voters, it's not retail shops that we're talking about. Service centers where someone comes in, a psilocybin service facilitator provides them with the dosage, and they do their thing, and then when it's over, then they leave. So it's not, you take it, you go home and do it. You're doing it at the service center. Mm-hmm.
It does process through your system relatively quickly. It is different than like marijuana, which can, is quite detectable. Psilocybin's not. I don't know if I want little psilocybin drug dens in Clackamas County. I think that, when was this passed by voters again? I remember this. I voted no, just for the record. 2020?
Correct.
A lot's happened between 2020 and now. We went through our pandemic, and then we had to deal with Measure 110, and the voters are feeling a little hoodwinked on this issue overall. I'm in favor of punting it back to the voters, and I will respect that, the voters' decision overall about what they want in their communities, whether I like it or not. I'm totally open for more education on this and learning more. But I agree with you, Chair. I think we're in a climate where we need to punt this back to the voters. I just have a lot of concerns as we are really, and I think it would be really kind of weird of us to be a county leading the entire state in helping people with substance abuse disorders and recovery centers and things like that. And then, oh, here we are. Here's your little shop where you can get on a pillow and have a psychedelic trip, and then, off you go. I don't know. I just don't know if that really is measuring our values currently that we've been speaking to over the last year.
I would agree with your statement on that, Commissioner West. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Good morning, Caleb. It's been 17 months now since OHA began to issue permits to those counties who approved the use of psilocybin in their counties. So I'd be curious as to what the consensus is out there on positive effects of the program and what are the negative effects. And so we can assess that to see if we're going to have a greater liability should this be approved in Clackamas County, or lesser liability. The other thing, too, is that although personally Mark Shull feels that psilocybin is not particularly a good thing, I don't want to make a decision based on my own bias on the issue. I would much prefer to hear from our Clackamas County Health Services personnel, our mental health personnel, and also our county medical officer on this issue to get their opinion. so that I can make an opinion based on fact and not on my own personal bias. And so right now, this morning, I kind of lean towards the idea of putting it before the voters in November to see how they react to it. But again, before that happens, we have to understand what the real facts are about this. Is it productive? Is it beneficial to some people? Or is it just a potential liability to our county? So before we can pass along a proposed measure to the voters in November, we would have to understand it better. Thank you, Caleb.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, what I don't understand about this, and I don't know if you can answer this, or Ben or someone, is we have a whole medical system with with getting drugs approved through a process as pharmaceuticals. And my objection to this is, I mean, Mark makes a point that, well, maybe in some instances it could be helpful. I don't know that, but why are we at this level of government making these kinds of decisions when there is a federal process for testing medications and knowing what the pros and cons of them are? Because when those larger companies come up with medications, they are required to say this is a pro, this is a con. And I don't understand why these kinds of substances that we're trying to legislate them, why isn't this happening at that level if it is a medical opportunity that is helpful for people, shouldn't it be going through that process? So for right now, I'd be like, no, I wouldn't. I don't know enough to allow this to happen in this county. That's what worries me the most. We have something in place, and all these other substances are being allowed without any real, to me, appropriate medical oversight. That's what, it's not the fact that maybe it does work, but we're putting people in, I guess the whole process was to put people with kind of just trained folks, not in medicine necessarily, but just kind of staying with them. That just doesn't sound medically, I don't know, Ben, you're the nurse, but that's my attitude with this. I don't even understand why we, I'd be ready to just put it to the voters to say yes or no, but that's how I feel.
Mark, I thought that was your last.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
No. You're good. Just keep talking. Just
Okay,
keep
so I'm
talking.
done. I'm done.
And I will say, I'm going to reiterate once again, you can purchase this product practically anywhere in Oregon, Washington,
Right.
and online. And we went through quite the process, as I remember, in that last policy. Boy, we had everybody in here. We had our own doctor, we had OHA officials, we had public health officials, we had everybody in here. I don't know that there's any new evidence out there that has changed in either support or denial of this. I do think we are responsible to the citizenry in some respect. It's like underage drinking, isn't it? Yeah, we have a law that says, 21 is legal drinking limit. We know for a fact on college campuses that's not observed, is my point. They get the alcohol if they want it. Yes. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, thank you. Another concern of mine is the administration of these psilocybin clinics, you call them?
Service centers.
Service center. And the production of the psilocybin. Is Oregon Health Authority able to administer these service centers and the production of psilocybin in the counties that have approved it so far? And if Clackamas County were to allow these service centers and production in Clackamas County, would there be any requirement for Clackamas County Health Services to provide oversight in Clackamas County? Because if that would be the case, I have some doubts as our ability and our manpower ability to actually administer that sort of thing.
My understanding from Measure 109 and the administrative rules that OHA has adopted is that OHA administers the licensing program, and if you don't have a license from OHA and you don't demonstrate that you can meet their standards and their criteria, you don't get a license and you can't operate your manufacturing, your product manufacturing facility or your service center. And
So the license, the issuing of the license is one thing. The oversight of the administration of how that license is performed, how that service center performs, is another thing. And so I don't mean to be overly skeptical, but I do have doubts about Salem's ability to provide oversight to an unknown number of psilocybin service centers in the state. So again, I'm a bit skeptical about their ability to ensure that every service center is run in accordance with the state law.
Yes, go ahead.
from what I'm hearing, the board would like to proceed with option one, which is,
We'll get to that, Caleb.
but
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Please stand down.
if that were to happen, we could invite subject matter experts to the
Caleb,
public
please,
hearing.
thank you. I think there's more comments from the board up here, and that's where I was going to go with this. Okay? I think we should entertain a motion. Commissioner West said he wants to make a motion, then we'll have discussion.
I'll make the motion, and then I do have a comments under discussion. Also, Chair, I would like to move to direct staff to schedule a public hearing to draft for referral to the voters in November 2024 election, an ordinance permanently banning psilocybin product manufacturers and/or psilocybin service centers within the unincorporated areas of Clackamas County.
And I'll second that.
Commissioner West has moved we approve option one. Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Caleb, yes, and that I was going to recommend that because we approved this today, but we needed to come back for a public hearing and for ballot title and then subsequent statement and then the arguments with information in it. Correct.
We will eventually have to develop those
Eventually have to
documents.
do that. I'm not opposed to listening to more, as you recommend, but I do want to go through a very methodical process on this before, and Commissioner Scholl raises some good questions. But I think we can get there, and I think, more information is always warranted, but on this particular topic, we need to make a decision today, because I'm going to refer commissioners to the calendar. Our calendar is not what you think it is. The week after the election, we have budget all week, and then there's also a memorial holiday in there. In June, there's a holiday in the middle of the week, and we are not taking off more time for that because we can't. In July, we have 2 weeks off. In August, we have 2 weeks off. So whereas we all have a quest for more knowledge and information, this has to be decided by August 16th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so there may be a way for us to get more information. I mean, we can work all afternoon until 5 o'clock. I don't care if you want to do that, but I have not seen the propensity of this board to stay here hardly past noon. But I'm willing to do that if you think we need to do that. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
To suggest that all your commissioners have a hard time staying here past noon is absolutely wrong. I object to that.
Go ahead and object. Do you have a comment?
I have the floor. And also, I would prefer, if I had my druthers, that this motion come after a public hearing, not before. Thank you.
Commissioner West.
When we talk about service centers, do we ever hear languages like safe use sites?
I have not come across that language in my review of the legislation and OHA's rules. It's possible that it is in there somewhere, or that they use a different term for the same thing.
I'm super curious because The advocates for a pro-drug Oregon and pro-drug culture often also support things like what we know as safe use sites, which have been used in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and other cities, where you get supervised use of illicit substances to use them safely. They're a disaster. They're also under a more radical version of the harm reduction umbrella. And so knowing kind of what's informing and the language being used and the ideology or worldview being used to inform the policy I'm curious about. That's why I ask if this is also like modeled after that type of thing where safe use sites, not the same thing, but there's some language similarities that make me kind of want to ask that question. I think, if we need to stay late one time, I'm fine with that. If we need to have one-on-ones with people to figure it out to get more educated, I'm down with that too. I think that this motion is timely and appropriate today, so I'll stand by that motion that I made. But and there's more to learn, and I obviously still have questions. But with that, Chair, I'll yield. But yeah, whatever we need to do to get this done and by the 16th, and the constraints were dealt with, we'll figure it out as a board.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all I have.
Good, and I'll have staff pull the board for additional information sessions on this. I don't know if it's going to be called a policy session or what, but going forward on this, I think more information is important, not just for our own edification, but for the public on why we're doing this, either pro or con. Like I say, I have not heard from anybody in this county or other counties, oh, you need to make this legal. It just isn't even in discussion. So I think the appropriate procedure for us is for a permanent ban to the voters to let them decide.
Quick question.
Yes.
Do we know what other counties have already just kind of opened up the I don't want to say floodgates, but the floodgates of psilocybin in their counties?
My understanding is that many counties did what Clackamas County did and adopted either a permanent or temporary ban in 2022. Actually, I believe in Deschutes County, Jackson County, Josephine County, and Wheeler County, the voters rejected that prohibition. But the point is that there are a few counties where it is allowed. I don't believe it's the majority of counties.
When was that? When was that vote that on the prohibition?
2022.
A lot has changed since.
What about Multnomah County? What have they done? What's their policy up north?
I believe it is allowed. I don't believe that they adopted a prohibition in Multnomah County.
Allowing psilocybin.
Yes.
In Washington County?
I believe they did not adopt a prohibition as well. I believe most of the cities, at least in urban Clackamas County, did not adopt a prohibition.
I would say there's evidence there potentially, Board, that the other counties in the Tri-County area that did not adopt a more lenient drug culture within their borders are having much better outcomes in this sector than Multnomah County is having.
Thank you. And Caleb, when we come back for more information, maybe you can list what the county's vote was 2 years ago. And those who had a temporary ban, like Clackamas, I'm not sure how many there are, and if that's coming up for consideration before their boards or commissions. I know that's kind of digging deep, but.
We can look into that. In 2022, when the board adopted its last prohibition, it held a policy session like this. County council collected commissioners' questions. Then they went to a public hearing on a proposed ordinance prohibiting these facilities. And it was at that public hearing that the commissioners' questions were answered by medical professionals, the hearings that you're talking about. Is that how you'd like to proceed in this case?
No, I don't necessarily think that. I want to know what the counties are doing. My question was, how many counties did this? How many counties did this? Going forward in '24, the counties who did a temporary ban like Clackamas, are they considering a more permanent ban or a more permanent allowance?
I'm happy to find that information. My question is, would you like to receive that in a public hearing in the future?
We will decide when you get that. I think what we're going to do is we're going to coalesce. I think our commissioners can talk to Gary about what information they would like to see, and we can bring in that information. I want to see what the information is for a public meeting on this. Commissioner Schrader may think of something tomorrow. I may think of something next week. For us to make a decision today on exactly what we're going to do in the public hearing will not happen. Okay?
Okay.
It'll be an effort that we need to put some time and thought in. Like Commissioner West, you're in the medical field. I think, your mind is probably turning. Commissioner Schull had very good questions about the monitoring of these centers. Is OHA going to provide the support we need? The short answer to me is, oh, heck no. It's going to fall on our shoulders, like all public health matters falls on the county's shoulders, is my opinion on that. Unless they want to give us a bunch of money to monitor this, I don't see that happening either. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a vote, and then on this motion, on number 1, and then any commissioner can talk to you or MAGCOR or Gary or their PAs and say, I want this information. So commissioners, the onus is on you if you want more information, okay? I'm not going to lead this effort because you can decide what information you want to discuss, okay? Would you please take the poll?
Commissioner Schull,
No.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 3-1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Caleb. If you're ready for the next session, Chair?
If people are here, certainly.
Yes, so the next policy session is an update from Greater Portland, Inc., of which Clackamas County is a member. We have Monique Claiborne, who is the president and CEO of Greater Portland, Inc., who will present today, and Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will just do a quick introduction and why we're here today. Thank you, Dan and Monique. Go ahead, please, Dan.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. As you know, my name is Dan Johnson. I'm the Director of the Department of Transportation and Development. And I have, and as you are also aware, the Office of Economic Development is located within our department in a value program that we partner with every day to look at the economic health of Clackamas County as a whole. I have the pleasure of being joined by Monique Claiborne from Greater Portland, Inc., who is here to provide you an informational update about the great work they're doing in and around the region. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. This is just
Welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you for having me today. I've been in the role for 3 years at Greater Portland, Inc., and Commissioner Schrader, hello. And I just thought it was important for me to come to you to present as to what we've been doing in the last 3 years and our plans ahead. As I know, Commissioner Schrader is our direct point of contact, but I think for informational purposes, you all should have the same information. Thank you.
Before we can, so on my laptop, this particular presentation is now gone because we took it out of order. So I don't have what I need on this.
Make the magic happen.
So Tony, can you find it, please?
It's nice to see you here today.
See you too.
Sorry, Monique. I want to get all the stuff right. Is that it?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Sorry. Okay. Monique, please proceed.
Okay. So Greater Portland, Inc., we're the only public-private partnership working to attract businesses in the entire Greater Portland region. When I first took on this role, there were so many organizations seemingly doing similar work. And so in true form, I just created a Venn diagram. I imagine, like myself, others have the same question. So we are by state. Southwest Washington, in addition to 5 counties in Oregon. We are public and private in nature, and these are some of the other organizations that we collaborate with depending on the region at hand. So we're responsible for attracting jobs and driving tangible regional prosperity. We do this at no cost for companies that are interested in expanding their footprint within the region, from domestic to international companies. We are the single point of contact, as some companies don't know which jurisdiction they want to establish their presence in the region. And so we work from project management, making introductions to key assets within the region, helping with workforce development partners, our universities, DEI resources, a lot of data, market visits, helping them to secure incentives with the state, and even sometimes at the local level, property tax abatements, and then, of course, real estate connectivity. Our industry clusters primarily deal with these 8 competitive industries. We know computers and electronics, also known as semiconductor, of course, apparel, and outdoor, climate tech. The governor just announced her new task force related to this. And then essentially spin-offs, industries, design and media, software. There's some metals and machinery, food and beverage processing is huge right now, particularly during the pandemic. And then bioscience, life science is a emerging sector for the region. In 2023, the organization helped attract 750 jobs. We had 5 project wins. Half were expansion projects, the other half were recruitments. This brought a little over 100 million in direct income, taxable income, to the region, as well as over 300 million in sales and output, and it created almost an additional 650 jobs. When I took on the road 3 years ago, I said, hey, I want to create 20,000 jobs, and was very bold about that goal, and we're trending ahead. And so we've been mentioned in the media, both in the region, outside of the region. We were a part of the semiconductor task force. I co-chaired the taxes and incentive committee, and I like to think that my work helped elevate it, that we just didn't have any money to contribute for the CHIPS Act. What we did know was, hey, we have this federal funding coming, but locally we had to be able to put forth some funds. And at the time, I believe we had, and by we, the state had around $11 million in incentives that was gonna last through the end of June. And that just wasn't substantial, right? And companies putting forth applications. And so I wrote an op-ed on that and just rang the alarm on that, and believe that contributed to ultimately $240 million being approved in tax credits for 15 businesses within the region that were expanding within semiconductor. And so again, this is just an example of some of the policy work that we've been involved in, but I should say more so advocacy work. And then our meetings, again, we've had over 80 investor meetings, and we honor investors as well as assist in projects with our investors. How we specifically help the county, and by county, the county of Clackamas. So it is community and economic research and data. We support business recruitment, your retention and expansion efforts, your downtown revitalization program, industrial development program, tourism and planning. So far, about $60,000 we have in databases that you and your staff have access to annually within our organization. Again, we assist in regional planning. We are the Federal Economic Development District. There's 1 in 12, there are 12, sorry, in the state. We're 1 of 12. And so we oversee the comprehensive economic development strategy, which you all are engaged in every 5 years, and then grant support. We've provided in the past data analysis, letters of support for specific grant applications. And then project management. Like I said, we help companies that are considering the region. We promote Clackamas County and help, again, with your economic development professionals on a more micro level. So far to date, since 2017 that we've tracked, we've created over 900 jobs that GPI has led those projects within Clackamas County. And that includes 400 indirect and induced jobs, nearly or a little more than 350 million in sales and output for the county, and over 100 million in, again, compensation taxable wages. You all have been investors since 2011. We appreciate your $25,000 annual investment, which is amounted to over or 350,000 over the years. We've worked with you all on a number of community assists, over 100. Recently, we helped your staff develop a slide deck providing data-rich overview on the county. And I mean, that went from a micro level with the different cities within the county. You all are also represented on our Small Cities Consortium. And we have topics bi-monthly. Our most recent topic was with Travel Portland, and they gave a presentation on how small cities can market themselves as it relates to tourism. And then again, our higher education consortium, where we bring in public and private universities, and Clackamas Community College is an investor. Our initiatives for this year is really to lean into regional promotion and regional coordination. So we received $2.5 million from the state in March for a marketing campaign to promote the region. There have been tons of headlines, right, related to Portland, from New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Fox News. We just cannot escape it. And so while there is a hyper-focus on the city of Portland, it in fact impacts the entire region, right? And we know, again, companies don't consider jurisdictions necessarily when they're looking at a particular region. And so it's incumbent upon us, and this underscores the state believes so as well, that Greater Portland, Inc. has been designated to promote the region from a marketing plan to bring an investment specifically to Greater Portland, excluding Southwest Washington. And so that is business outreach. We're going to be bringing companies here. We're going to be going to cities and companies, media partnerships, paid digital advertisement that other regions do, public relations. We've already started with our SEO optimization. So when people are like Googling, making sure our page comes up and not a Fox News article on PSU's demonstrations. Right.
Good point.
Right.
Very good point.
Yeah. And I'll add, too, if you did notice the coverage over the protests over the last couple of weeks, it's UCLA, it's Rutgers, it's Columbia, and then it's Portland and Portland State University. They lead with Portland. So that's my presentation. Just want you to know more so what we're doing. Want you to be aware, and want you to be engaged in the work, you specifically or your economic development team. Thank you.
Thank you very much on this wonderful presentation. I read it. You mentioned something that I'm real curious about. It said you, to get federal funds, you got federal funds.
State funds.
State funds?
Yep, Oregon
Okay.
legislature.
To get state funds, is a match required?
No.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard that. Oh, I thought you said, a local match is required to get federal funds. I just didn't hear you right. Okay. I was just wanting to see, if
No, well, we are going to go to the Washington Department of Commerce to see if they will contribute funds, the $2.5 million, given our MSA is Southwest Washington, did not present on that, but we will see. But as of now, the $2.5 million is to just market the 5 counties in Oregon.
Because you consider the region as an economic hub.
Correct.
I'm thinking, just not Portland, the tri-counties, but across the river. As we know, a lot of our population has migrated across the river. Businesses have been set up, and they're doing some wonderful development. That's probably very insightful of you. Commissioner Schrader, I know you have a lot of questions.
I do. Well, this is something I'm highly interested in, and one of the things we do at the National Association of Counties is always lobby for the funding for the EDA. That is really the one that gives dollars to regions for the comprehensive economic development strategies. And just for your information, colleagues, you are our hub for that. And you're right, Commissioner. When you look at what GPI does, it really is looking at regional traded sector types of development and bringing companies not only from other states, and correct me if I'm wrong or not, but also it gives us an international arm into that continuum of other companies. We have a number of companies from Germany here, for example, that do medical technology, manufacturing, things of that sort. So you're the hub that brings it, but you think regionally, and what we try and do is make sure you're thinking about us as a key piece of that region, which brings me to my question. Can you be more specific about when you said 931 jobs created from GPI? since 2017. Can you get more information to my colleagues about that, about some more specifics of what that was?
Unique to Clackamas County, I
Yeah.
understand.
And frankly, I need that, and I should have been more prepped today, so I apologize, colleagues. But what it does for me then, seeing the value of this organization, particularly for traded sector, traded sector economic development, it gives me an opportunity to work with my colleagues and show that we're getting, a return on our investment in a way that you see this is a really good opportunity to maintain our relationship with you.
Yes, I will follow up with that. And what I
Okay.
will also follow up is we keep a pipeline of projects that we're currently prospecting right
that would be
now,
helpful.
and those projects that are considering the county.
And I do know that you've helped Laura pretty extensively now, because the other comment I would make, colleagues, is that locally, we've talked to Laura about what we're doing, and that is giving, the strategic investment in workforce with Clackamas Community College, and then helping some of our businesses if they need bridging money for expansion and retention. That is something that very locally we can do, particularly for our smaller to medium-sized businesses that maybe want to start moving up the economic ladder. What your organization does for us is you bring those larger opportunities in. So for me, it's that bubble of the nexus between the large traded sector guys and the smaller businesses that actually also thrive when you've got that base of folks that you're bringing in that maybe are national or international.
By Laura, you mean Laura Edmonds, our new economic
Yes.
director manager?
That's right.
Just for a point of clarification.
Yes, sorry
We're very
about
proud
that.
of this new
So
office.
thank you for coming, and if you can get that information to us, it would be really helpful.
I'm
Okay.
not sure it was first marker ban.
I don't know.
Commissioner West, go
Yep.
ahead.
I guess a couple observations since I, sixth-generation Oregonian, grew up in North Portland. Happy that Clackamas County is now where I raised my family, my home. I love to tout that we're open for business, that in many aspects, Clackamas County has been a center of excellence and a pocket of excellence for business development and growth, despite our geographic disparities, despite our lack of investment by the state in the region, despite all the fact we have the right culture here that really promotes job growth, job creators, and innovators to do work here. But we are all really hurt by still what's going on in Portland. You kind of glossed over it a little bit, like just a Fox News or media buzzword. But I still go downtown and step over lifeless bodies. I still see boarded up windows. And a bunch of malcontents and anti-Semites just took over the PS Library for weeks. And we're probably allowed to do that because they kind of share probably the same anti-American, anti-Western values that the administration that taught them how to be malcontents do. And so we want to try to fix this and make this a pro-business, capitalistic, free market society where we are all thriving and everybody has an opportunity, but we continue to earn the headlines. I remember I went to the big business regional conference earlier this year
Oh, right.
at the Moda Center. What was that? It was like the Oregon Business.
Oregon Business Plan.
Thank you, business plan. And I really appreciate the words by the CEO of Columbia Sportswear. He seemed to be a little more candid and honest. But it seemed like we wanted to fix this problem with pretty marketing photos and tourism outreach and more tax dollars to pay for it, while not being honest about what is the rot in the root of Portland that has been informed by certain policies and certain types of leadership. And you can look around and still find places where businesses can really thrive. Clackamas County is one of those. But I'm really concerned that we really won't have a healthy state again or healthy communities again until we have a healthy business community, until some of the business community is willing to be very honest with policymakers about what they've created here. Because at any moment, a bunch of malcontents can try to burn down a building, go after police, take over a library, block Jewish students from getting access to the campus that they are enrolled into, yell things like Antifada, and really dehumanize an entire people group based on wildly inaccurate propaganda. And if I was going to open up a business, I promise you it wouldn't be down there. And we can't have a healthy Oregon without that. And to be frank, I know you guys are doing good work, but cute photos and $2 million from the state legislature isn't going to do a thing as long as that's happening. And I only say those kind of, candid words because I love this state and I love this area. But I'm really concerned about what we continue to allow to foster and grow here. And I think one of the most important voices in that, and I wish they would be a little bit more principled in their voice, is the business community and the people that allow people to rise out of poverty by giving them good jobs, allow people to get an education, have pride in a hard day's work, allow them to learn a skill and be an asset to their community and have those opportunities. It's getting harder and harder to still do that in Oregon. So I'll just leave it at that. I know I just took a soapbox. I don't have a question for you. Maybe it's more feedback about kind of the tension that I feel as a policymaker and a local elected and somebody whose family's been here many, many generations.
No, Commissioner West, I think your comments are valid and spot on. I would add that some things that are still true, right? Two things can be true.
Yeah.
Greater Portland, when I say Greater Portland, the region, we are still the best value on the West Coast. We have to promote that. We are still a strategic location to Asia. We have to promote that. We are still trailblazing in education. We have to promote our universities. We still have an amazing quality of life in the region. We have to promote that. And so these are the messages that we will promote, not pictures. These are the messages that companies will hear when we go visit them, when we bring them here. Because while there is still this culture in the city of Portland and surrounding and some policymakers, all that's true, but this is true too. And Greater Portland Inc.'s responsibility is to just bring investment despite the tide that's in our face.
Are you guys having a voice at all on what's happening with the port right now in the terminal that is on threat of being closed? Are you guys advocating that it's an essential, vital asset and resource that we keep that terminal open?
The port is an investor in GPI, and they have given us their talking points, and no one has reached out to us for comment, but we would circle back with the port if we were to say anything.
Do you guys support the terminal being open and working with the governor to keep that port open so that our ag businesses can continue to thrive and other businesses? It's essential to business infrastructure.
Yes,
Okay.
but I understand they have limitations and challenges too in their business that they're
And
operating.
if I could just make a comment with that, Ben, that's really our job as the people who are a member of, it's partially your job, but remember, we're the elected officials. We're the ones that see that kind of stuff going on. You can help us, but we need to be having that conversation directly with the port as well, with your help. And that is what the benefit of your organization is, in my humble estimation, because we have those contacts. I think probably across the whole business landscape, a closure of the port right now is probably, yes, not going to be well received by some of our traded sector partners, because it's going to limit our export opportunities. But as a member of the board, as we are the ones that need to be having that conversations, and we are having them right now at that level with GPI.
Yeah,
And I've been very definite about no port closure myself. Now, the port, we may have a difference of opinion, but I'm telling you that that's what our job is in that, so.
Yeah, and I'll just close with this. It's just one of those essential negative giant gut blows to industry, business, and job creation here regionally and globally, to lose that piece of infrastructure, along with all just the constant chaos. There's a lot of what you said is true, but they still necessarily don't want to come here despite those truths you shared, because those negatives and risk are even outweighing those benefits. And there's a lot of other places that are much more appealing across this competitive country for business development. And man, it's like we just keep shooting ourselves in the foot. And I want to see us succeed. I really do. And so I just want to see us to be a little more effective and influential as a business community to get those things done. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl.
Good morning, Dan Johnson. Morning, Claiborne. On slide 4, you, under services included, you have the service real estate connectivity. Can you explain to me what that is?
Yeah, so when a company comes to the region, they may be interested, well, they have parameters and criteria of the real estate that they're looking for. It can be industrial, it can be office, it could be 50,000 square feet with access to rail for cold storage warehouse. Or it may be, hey, we're hiring 200 employees, 20 employees, 500 employees. I need so much square footage in an office building. This is the type of employee or talent I'm looking for. I want to have proximity to X, Y, and Z. And so we have access to a database where we can provide preliminary real estate options for them. And then there are, of course, a lot of properties that are not marketed. So then we work with our real estate partners, JLL, I mean, it could be developers, you name it. I don't want to, CBRE, Melvin Mark, there are tons. And so we'll ask them to, what properties do you have available? What properties do you see? This is what the prospective company is looking for. And then another step would be site tours as well with them. And so that's the real estate connectivity.
I see.
And a lot of that work really connects locally with Laura and her staff as well, because they.
Laura Edmonds, our
yeah,
new
Laura Edmonds.
economic manager.
And essentially, it's the outreach that's done, it's the coordination that's done through GPI that not only looks at properties that are on the market, but it's also identifying properties that may not be on the market.
Exactly.
Yet. And it's also, it's that local knowledge and understanding that we have about the property owners in certain areas. It's the discussions we have with them to educate and expand upon that opportunity, so.
I see. Okay, thank you. Next question is regarding slide 6. The 2023 new jobs in our region, 751. Monique, can you tell me how many of those jobs came to Clackamas County?
I can tell you, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I know, again, there were a previous slide said 900 jobs came to Clackamas. I'm not sure if that year, if that was in 2023 or 2022. I do know since I've been in the role in 3 years.
Okay, so I would be interested maybe sometime to learn of the 751 jobs in the region for 2023, how many of them actually came to Clackamas County? And on those jobs, Monique, you have a target, average income target? Because we need jobs, we need good, high-paying jobs, preferably. Do you have a sensitivity about the kind of jobs and the wages or salaries that you're looking for as you go out to try to attract new jobs to our region?
We just ask quality jobs, right, and quality wages. We don't target specific blue collar versus white collar.
Okay.
But within our marketing campaign, we will be targeting specific regions and specific industries.
Okay. And in 2023, for those new jobs to Clackamas County, how are we doing on new jobs in the semiconductor industry? Do you have any visibility on that?
We do. And so what we're seeing within the semiconductor industry, a lot more jobs within expansion projects, companies that are currently here will be expanding. We will have a trade mission likely within the next 12 months where we will be going to Asia for new jobs and new companies.
Okay,
but when you think about, and so this is important too, in your question about of the 751 jobs in 2023, how many came to Clackamas County? Some of these projects, the timeline, right, we're talking 12 months, 24 months, 18 months in terms of working with companies and sometimes even longer than that. And so while they may not have made a decision in any particular year, it's, multiple contacts with the company as they're preparing their expansion project.
Okay. And on that, in the region, of course, Clackamas County is smaller than our two neighbors to the north, Multnomah County, Washington County. So is there a sensitivity or a focus in Greater Portland, Inc. for concerning yourself with a percentage of new jobs that you want to fall into Clackamas County?
No, we don't. But I would also caution, it's not just, it's also companies located here, but it's also where does the talent live, right? And so what we do know, their people are crossing boundaries and jurisdictions every single day.
Yeah.
And I do think that's information worthy of sharing, and I'll be able to see if I can dig into
Okay.
that, whereas not only the company is here, but companies, let's say the company wasn't in Clackamas County, were the residents.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Monique. And then one last question for you. On the regional promotion for 2023 through 2026, on that regional promotion, is there a specific, is there an identified piece of that three-year promotion for Clackamas County?
Yes and no. So the $2.5 million, how it would be spent is a collaborative process, and we're just now putting pen to paper with the specific timeline and plan of that. And we haven't received the funds yet either, just to give you a good sense of when the timeline starts. And as we're drafting the plan now, we will be asking for input from our board as well as our investors. We had a board meeting this morning, and we had a high level of this is the plan and what we're thinking about, and then now we're going to start putting dates there. So there will be an opportunity for Commissioner Schrader to provide input, and there'll be tons of opportunities when we're bringing companies into the region for Commissioner Schrader and as well as you all, if you so choose, to be able to meet with those companies.
Yeah. Okay, Monique. Well, one last comment, and that is this. Every county competes with other counties to attract new business. Every city competes with other cities to attract new business. And so here in Clackamas County, our concern is Clackamas County, not the region. Although the economic health of the region does affect us, certainly. But I just would ask you to remember, as you look at the regional promotion plan and your focus on efforts with Greater Portland, Inc., that you keep in mind that we here in Clackamas County are struggling for every new job we can get, and we need your help to do that.
I hear that,
Okay.
and I'll take that under consideration. And I think one of the great things about Laura Edmonds is that she uses us as an extension of her, right? And so we can help amplify the message and amplify the work that is happening at the county level that wouldn't otherwise be done.
Okay, well, thank you for entertaining my questions.
And we do now have the ability, since we have a new Office of Economic Development, it's up to us, is it not, to let other regions know we have these opportunities available, correct? So it's a two-way communication stream. It's just not up to you to say whatever. That's how I look at it now. We're kind of in a new era. We're able to do more outreach in that area. And before I go to Commissioner Schrader, I have a question on the GPI. What is your governance structure?
We have a board of directors, and they are governance board. Commissioner Schrader sits on the board. We have an executive committee of the board directors, and then we have a finance committee, we have a business advisory committee, and we have a governance committee.
So you have a president and a secretary and a treasurer, and do you abide by public meetings law as a non-government entity?
We do have, all our board meetings are public.
Okay. Could you send me a link to your website so I can take a look at your governance structure and who's on it? Like I say, it's probably up to us, to do some outreach and say, hey, we've got this available or not. I'm just really curious about that. And I assume you're the executive director, with your phone number as well, because you would be my first contact.
Yes,
Yeah, just to say, hey, you know, how are you doing?
yes.
Yes, thank you very much on that. Commissioner Schrader?
I just want to thank you for coming today, and I want to assure my colleagues that's why I'm on the board with the question you just asked. So I would say maybe it's my job to communicate more thoroughly with you if you have those specific questions. And I should have anticipated that today, for which I apologize.
That's all right.
But the whole point of being part of this organization is also about businesses and supply chains as well. Every time you recruit someone in the region from a particular sector, this county is the king of supply chain management. And I can give you lots of examples of those too.
Good.
So it may not be in Clackamas County, but you may also be building on a cluster where one of our existing businesses here also expands because they are a supply chain. So that's why we think about this in a broader sector and regionally, because it's all interconnected like a large hub ecosystem. So anyway.
Yep.
Thank you for coming today. It's nice to see you.
You too, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I don't see any. Monique, thank you for coming to Clackamas County. We're most appreciative.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. Gary, what's next?
All right, next policy session is Clackamas Village Preliminary Site Management and Program Design Plan. Our Health, Housing, and Human Services team will present. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services, and Vahid Brown, Division Director for Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. In response to community need for emergency shelter and transitional housing, Clackamas County is developing a new 24-pod transitional housing village community on the vacant property just east of Veterans Village. With the support and direction of the board, Health, Housing, and Human Services acquired the property that includes both the current Veterans Village and future Clackamas Village sites from the Development Agency in December of 2023. After having leased the property since the Veterans Village was built in 2018, the acquisition paved the way for developing the new village on the eastern portion of the property, and the board approved a funding plan and plans to proceed with solicitations for construction and program delivery services for the new village at a policy session on December 13, 2023. The board approved the $3.2 million construction contract with ASA Construction at the business meeting on April 25, 2024. An intent to award funds for program delivery has been issued to All Good Northwest. That contract is in development and will come to the board for approval in June or July. Staff are currently working with Base Design and Architecture and ASA Construction on pre-construction permitting and other activities. This includes working with the state of Oregon and the modular manufacturer to get the modular units permitted, and with Clackamas County for other aspects of permitting. It also includes working with the modular manufacturer and All Good Northwest on final aspects of modular design to ensure they are built for the easy maintenance and durability. Construction is anticipated to start in July and take approximately 10 months. Targeted site opening would be March 2025. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vahid Brown, who can discuss the management and program design portions of this project.
Thank you, Rod. Good morning, Chair Smith. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Vahid Brown, Deputy Director, Housing and Community Development. As Rod mentioned, we conducted a solicitation for the program operations for the Clackamas Village, we've come a long way. Those are lots of milestones that we're getting very close to a new kind of jewel in the crown of our recovery-oriented system of care, and a very successful model in Clackamas County, the Village model, which a PSU study recently found is more successful than traditional congregate shelters in helping people achieve permanent housing. So building on a regional innovation, the Portland region was the first to have a village model shelter. All Good Northwest was the successful applicant through the solicitation. They operate 3 village-style programs in the region, so they have a lot of experience with this particular type of programming. There's some materials in your packet that are drawn from All Good Northwest materials that they've adapted for other programs in the Portland region. In our program, the Clackamas Village, All Good Northwest will be a kind of a comprehensive provider of services at the location, from property management, security, and sort of site safety, partner development, and community livability and engagement with the surrounding businesses, which would just continue our successful relationships we've already established with those businesses, with the Veterans Village, which is, of course, the neighbor. And they will provide a comprehensive transitional housing program with on-site staff that will be there 24/7, with behavioral health support staff, including a behavioral health specialist, which is a qualified mental health professional, and peer support staff, 4 case managers to provide case management support to the participants, housing navigation and placement services, and other supportive services on site. Like with our other programs, participants would be assessed and referred to the program through our Coordinated Housing Access Program. This is not a walk-up. It's not a shelter. There's not a line down the sidewalk. And this is a transitional community. So it's not you're there for one day and then you're on your own. It's participants will be staying there in a community until they move on to permanent housing. We are now finalizing the contract terms with All Good Northwest, as they were the successful applicant to the solicitation. And we're here today to kind of provide this update on where we've come on the road since December 2022, when this board gave us the green light to move forward on a Clackamas Village. As Rod said, the construction contract has been awarded. The contract with All Good Northwest will come to you for review and approval in the next weeks, probably in June or July. And there are details here about the program plan and the supportive services, but we're also available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Commissioner West.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you. This is exciting. I wish I would have seen something that I don't see in this packet. Commissioner Scholl and I did do a nice visit with the surrounding businesses. They've been patient partners in this, but it wasn't all roses. And so fostering and building that trust, I know we're doing it. I don't know where we're at with that and where they feel now that we're close to breaking ground on that. I looked at the fence at the trust company business that this would be directly behind it. They were really concerned about not only just safety and well-being of their business, their employees, and their product that is out in that lot, but that fence is not real secure. And so I have brought up before in the past, do we have plans to replace their fence for secure? I see a thumbs up, thank you. So I think that's super necessary, that it's an appropriate, very secure fence. I'm curious, where they're at. I think Commissioner Scholl and I, we got a pretty honest assessment by those businesses. We actually were able to connect to the auto body shop that was having those struggles right across the parking lot. I'm curious, I would love to have an update from them about what they're feeling with this. I think we're close. I think we're going to get there. I just want to also be really awesome, good neighbors, because this is legitimately right in their backyard. So I just want to be really cognizant of that moving forward. So I'm curious about where we're at with that update. And then the other thing is, we talk about that kind of housing care continuum. We talk about it all the time, that from that more sheltered housing to that temporary stabilization housing to permanent. It's all part of that, right? So when we talk about that, I'm curious about what time frame is somebody most likely going to be at this facility, and then what are those steps, kind of where are they coming from directly usually, and then what's that next step they graduate out of? I'm curious about how that looks.
Great. Yeah, let me take the programmatic question first. Okay. So as a safety off the streets program, it would prioritize people who are literally homeless. So someone in their housing journey right now, they're unsheltered. We contact them, or they contact us. We reach them through outreach, or they've called the CHA. We've got them on our list of folks that we prioritize by vulnerability who are literally unsheltered and experiencing homelessness, refer them to this program. The goal is, across our safety off the streets programs, is to, if possible, shoot for a housing placement within a month and a half. Okay. But with the transitional community, we're going to give up to 2 years for that support, depending on the severity of barriers. So we're looking for a range of time of residency. And in a community environment, we can support that, right? There are community chores and responsibilities that are shared, and there's community meetings and so forth. So this isn't a kind of a very quick revolving door program. It's really meant to identify the barriers and move through them planfully and deliberately so that folks will be successful when they move on to housing. We're, as part of our, larger vision and strategies for the spend down plan of the accumulated carryover balance of the supportive housing services dollars, this board has approved some ambitious projects to fill out the component parts of our recovery-oriented system of care, including specialty housing for behavioral health needs, including addiction recovery, acute mental health needs. So we are building the infrastructure so that what you're talking about, Commissioner West, someone who's there at the village for 60 days, if their next step is most appropriately a longer-term residential program with on-site supportive services for their addiction needs, we are building that infrastructure. So that's part of our scattered site disposition plan that this board has approved. But we also have long-term rental assistance vouchers and housing in the community with supportive services. So it would be finding the appropriate piece in the continuum to meet the need of that individual and transition them as quickly as possible.
So this is like a 90 to 24 months?
Yes.
Okay. And how do we see within this model, what is the typical, what's the average?
So for the Veterans Village, average is about 500 days.
Okay.
Okay.
It's about a year and a half. Okay. Cool, that's my questions, thank you.
What about the fence?
Oh,
Yes.
Because I am too very,
Adam Brown.
we talked about that. I don't know if it's included in this or if we need to make a modification. Please come forward, Adam.
Oh, do you want to come up here or take this one?
Good morning. Adam Brown, Deputy Director, Health, Housing, and Human Services. So good question about the fence. There's two aspects to this. So there's the relational aspect, right, and being responsive to the needs of the surrounding community. We've told All Good this is a top priority for us. They know that. We put in the solicitation for these services that there's an expectation of responsiveness to the community, right, being good neighbors. So that's a huge priority for us. We know our success is contingent upon that. On the fence specifically, we have a project meeting every Tuesday morning. Now that the contractor's on board to talk about their work getting started. They're developing their list of subcontractors. They're actually scheduling a meeting on site today with all the subs. I specifically asked them yesterday to take a look at the fence. There's a tree along that fence line that's a problem. The tree needs to come down. So we're working on getting a contractor out there to remove the fence. To remove the tree. They're gonna assess that fence line and come up with a plan. And I told the contractor in specific terms, we need to be a good neighbor here. Let's figure out what it's going to take to get that fence replaced and be a good neighbor with the trust company. I feel like we're in good hands with ASA Construction. They have a lot of experience with public works projects. They've done schools, medical clinics, et cetera. They know the sensitivities around public projects, and they've said all of the right things when I'm talking to them about our concerns about impact on the community, the need to be responsive. The owner herself, right, is making herself available. So I feel like we're in good hands.
Thanks, Adam. What has the business owner said, right? There's a partner here in this too, it's their fence. So, I think it needs to be it's not secure enough and it must be upgraded. But I'm just curious what they're thinking, how are they feeling, what have they said to us?
So I haven't talked with them personally, and I can reach out to hear exactly that. My understanding is that they want the fence replaced because it's old, it's kind of falling down, and so I was getting the construction folks started on, hey, we need to figure out what it's going to take to replace it. But we certainly need to engage with them to talk about, well, then what do you want that to look like, right? What works for both of us?
And I see it as it's not a good neighbor fence like you would have in your own backyard. It's like a security business fence. It's tall, it's a barrier, it's something the business will feel comfortable with. It's probably an upgrade, but I think they've earned it, right? They've been great neighbors. I just want to make sure that we're creating the infrastructure that it's a win-win for the business and they see us investing in their success and why we do this endeavor over here.
Yep. Exactly, and that's what I meant by telling the contractor, like, we need to do what it's going to take to impart that sense of shared respect about using the space.
Perfect, thank you.
Before I go to Commissioner Scholl, I want to finish the conversation on the fence. It needs to be a substantial fence. We need to pay for it, and it needs to be quite the upgrade, because we're the ones that are affecting change in the community. I want to make sure it's done, and I need to know, does the fence come before construction or after construction? Because during the construction phase, there's a lot of noise and commotion, and those businesses need to be somewhat.
High-skilled labor, we can't get anywhere else. We can bring them to the United States.
Yeah, we'll have high school.
Hold on.
They're highest functioning individuals.
I've done that before, too.
I don't even know how that happened. Sorry.
That's right.
You don't know how it happens.
What was my train of thought? Does the construction of the fence need to become before construction or after? My druthers would be before, because we need to protect the business activity while we're in the construction phase. And I don't want to see us slopping over, so to speak, into the business activities or the property. And I'm not saying you would. It sounds like we're mindful for that. Really want to nail down that fence. And maybe we have a design, and we take it to the business owners. Do you approve? We will pay for it. And that is good outreach. That's the beginning of being a good neighbor, not just sitting at this dais talking about, oh, we want to be a good neighbor. What actions, Rod, are we going to take to ensure that we're a good neighbor? I would suggest you start first with the fence, and we do outreach in that regard.
That sounds great. And there's an order of operations thing, right? Because, and we want to work with them. Would you rather have the fence replaced now to, protect against the impacts of the construction? Is there risk to the fence during construction? Would it
I would
get
agree.
dirty, damage, et cetera? So
Right.
we can all come to terms on the order of
But
operations
if we
on
go
that.
to the businesses first and say we're considering this fence, at least they know that.
Yep.
Okay? And that's a big deal. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Good morning, gentlemen. I too am concerned about the good neighbor element of this project. We've seen, despite the outstanding work that Our Father's Heart does here in Oregon City, we've seen problems with people getting services, then being a block down the road and having nowhere to go. The transportation part of this is important. I understand there's a bus line just on Jennifer, correct? But I'm hoping that we can incorporate maybe some transportation element into this project for people who need to get around, because that's critical. It's in a location where that transportation piece is going to be needed. The other part is that the people who are allowed to live in this project, that they display the personal responsibility to take part in the services that we have available: mental health, addiction recovery, maybe education, full spectrum services that help people go from homelessness or the need to receive this housing support to a point in their lives where they can be self-sustaining. So personal responsibility is very important, and so your criteria for admittance is going to be important in this project. We have, for people who have problems with personal responsibility, we have other housing options for them, a hotel voucher or maybe some other projects we have, so that we can make sure that the Clackamas Village is a very positive environment. Like you mentioned yesterday, it'll be a no drug, no alcohol zone. And so that's going to be very important for all good Northwest to make sure that the SOP that you develop for it is strictly adhered to, and that we have a high degree of discipline in this project so that we don't get problems with complaints from the neighbors. I know that Veterans Village has got a very good reputation. But I do recall early last year, fall of 2022, we had a complaint from the trust company that somebody had pitched a tent right outside the gate there. So those kind of things we need to make sure don't happen. So again, any project, the difference between a really good project and one that's gets a lot of complaint is, one, an element of personal responsibility for your people who are going to live there, and two, a strict application of the your standard operating procedure by All Good Northwest. So good luck. And one more question. Permits, everything going good with permits?
Yeah, it's going great.
Okay. The sewer, this is on a sewer connection.
Yeah, there's a lot of groundwork that
Yeah,
we've got to
but-
do there, including the sewer
Okay.
connections.
No problem with that?
Nope.
Okay, good, thank you.
So Commissioners, we're going to consider the site plan today. I will entertain a motion. Programming comes later, correct?
This is the framework for a program.
This is the site plan for the building. Programming comes later, although you have had some elements in here, what the expected behavior is.
Correct.
Thank
And the contract with All Good will come to you within the next couple months.
Thank you, that's what I want to know. So I know we're all excited about programming as well. Today, we approve the site plan. Commissioners, who wants to make a motion?
I'll do it. I move to approve the preliminary site management and program design plan.
And I will second that.
Commissioner Scholl has moved we approve the preliminary site plan, management, and design. Commissioner Schrader has seconded that. Do we need to add the fence?
I think the fence is in scope already, Chair.
Is it in scope? It just didn't say in our materials?
It's not specified here. That's part of the architectural construction stuff. I'll defer to Gary on what needs to be added on.
Go ahead and add it to the motion.
Okay, I'm going to add to the motion that immediately the design for the fence be implemented and you reach out to all neighbors and get their opinion on it.
Got it.
So do we have to?
Commissioner Scholl, would you like to add that motion, that addendum?
That's just fine.
Commissioner Schrader?
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the site plan with one modification on the fence. I think I'm pretty definitive on what I mean by that. Okay, thank you. Hearing no further discussion. Clerk, please take the poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much for your good work on this. We're most appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And colleagues,
That's fine.
I think we're,
I know, but there's no communication.
oh, yeah.
No, that's it for today. You're
Not for today.
that tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Martha.
a day.
You can leave, Martha, because we all are too.
Chair, you're still live. Chair,
We have to
Chair,
adjourn
would
the
you
meeting.
adjourn, please?
Let's have to adjourn the meeting. Seeing no further business before this commission, we are now adjourned.